Requesting live conversation confirmation patch through with Special Agent.
Live confirmation request to Special Agent Feng Loi in progress.
Special Agent Feng Loi, check in. I see we have special update, Protocol 27. Juicy personal information. Hello, Mr. Feng Loi. Your professional touch will be needed once again. Your subject has a dental appointment tomorrow at 3 o'clock at his usual location. Hasn't been driving his truck for a while. Dealing with pre-appointment stress with cheap malt liquor at the Red Roof Inn. Professional as always, Mr. Feng Loi. Please, just make sure he sees you.
Just in case you haven't guessed, this video is going to be about street theater with personal information and directed conversations. Just as I've mentioned before, gang stalking or group harassment can manifest in many different ways. And, well, I think the intro illustrates one way. I'm not saying that satellites are communicating and giving the people at your doctor's office or wherever personal information, but, you know, however you want to process that, it can happen that way. That's one of the ways this can, can manifest. We know there's evidence for people who are harassed by very sophisticated programs that involve a lot of different resources. I think that it's probably pretty rare, though. Okay, and I think I don't know. I think it's very popular for people to assume that whenever they get harassment that would require, a lot of resources or a lot of organization, that it is the government. And like I said, it can be. That's definitely one possibility. Some of the other possibilities we're going to go over, people can get together that have resources and they can watch you with the technology that's available to everybody. You don't have to be involved in the government to pull some of this stuff off. If you have money and you have people pooled together, you can play this game. The technology is available to average citizens. Okay, I think you can even get the device to employ voice to skull technology. I'm not sure about that, but I think I saw something like that where, it's not cheap, but it's definitely out there. I suppose if you knew how to do it, you could probably make it fairly simple. I've got a video on that, and it had to do with, I think, a bunch of kids in a technical school learning how this stuff works. So I don't know whether you wanted to buy the device that was, I think it was listed for around, $30,000 or $40,000, or whether you want to make one. I think stuff like that's doable, and people can be tracked with satellites and everything like that, and tracking apps on their phone. You could, probably hide a small tracking device in someone's vehicle or whatever. And with a hotspot or access to Wi-Fi, you can pretty much, put cameras or whatever in someone's dwelling or their vehicle or wherever, and you can watch them live right there on the internet. I'm not trying to make you paranoid. It's just a fact. Anyway, most of the people that are watching this video are already paranoid, so it doesn't really matter. There's other possibilities as well, and I talk about the spiritual application to this whole thing, and I think that's probably more common. That's just my personal opinion. Like I said, it's very popular for people to assume the government is experimenting on them, or they have them in some type of program, but it doesn't always happen that way. And I know that if I had a lot of resources and I could hire some people, I could probably make someone think that the government was after them. It's popular. And the Kingdom of Darkness, well, they want people to look crazy, right? And one of the problems with gang stalking, one of the problems with trying to get help or explaining what's going on to people is coming up with a reason, right? In the case of the government thing, well, people are being experimented on, or they're people who have blown the whistle, or they're individuals that the government has flagged because they are independent thinkers. They're not people who go along with the crowd, and they've been singled out. And there's all kinds of little things. But even if you came up with something like that and told it to the people that are, questioning you or wondering, why you have security cameras, or, why you keep moving from job to job or whatever, well, they're not going to see that. They're not going to see it as reasonable. And, the government, that's, like I said, that's probably kind of viable. But when it comes to other things, like groups of people targeting you or whatever, well, they just want to play God with me. And even if you can get someone to believe that, you are still going to run into the logistical impossibilities that most people are faced with, right? They're getting harassed in multiple geographical locations by a lot of different people. And, just like with the government, thing, there's a problem there, okay? And I've talked about that before. When people assume that the government is after them, well, there's other things that go along with that. Because now, when they are being harassed by people, maybe in their family, or, wherever, at their workplace, or even by strangers, you have to kind of connect this thing together in a conscious collusion, okay? And that could be a problem. It's not impossible. Okay? I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. But I'm just saying that it becomes a logistical nightmare, right? And I've seen that before. And, I think I made a video about this a long time ago. It's kind of embarrassing, but, I saw some stuff back. I think it was probably back in about 1995 that opened my eyes, because I assumed that I was dealing with a type of secret society. Okay, that was kind of what I came up with first. And I wasn't really sure how it was all working. I knew that the occult was involved somehow, at least in my theory at that point. But when I was confronted with people, the message that was coming at me was that these people were in cahoots, right? They were all kind of connected somehow. And I was on the outside. I didn't have the knowledge. I wasn't good enough or whatever. That was kind of the message that was coming through. And I've talked about that before with targeted individuals, that they are led to believe that they're just on the outside. They're not good enough. They're an individual that hasn't been recruited to be involved in whatever the hell you want to make this out to be. And it can turn into an issue where targeted individuals, they get a complex, okay? And I can see why. I think I did. I had a complex. And I think most targeted individuals who are persecuted with that higher form of harassment, they get that. Or they get the message that they're playing a game. Or there's all these different things that can come at the target. But to get back to the point, I was in a store. And I was talking with this gal. And it was late at night. And one of those transit buses pulled in to the store, and out popped a bunch of mentally handicapped individuals. I'm not making any issue out of that, but this is a true story. It's weird, but it really happened. And by the way, they're probably the best people in the world. But okay, here's the true story that happened, and it did open my eyes. They were all acting as you would expect, and I think it might have been movie night or something, and they were probably all people who lived at a special home, because they were all on that bus, I don't remember how many of them there were. There was quite a few. I don't know, 15 or 20. And, they were, doing, like I said, what you'd expect them to do. When they walked in, they were looking at candy and kind of talking amongst themselves. And I started to talk about some things that had to do with the gospel to that girl that was working there. And all of a sudden, they started acting really weird. Okay. I mean, just at first it was just, they kind of were acting like they were out of it, like they were kind of catatonic all of a sudden. I noticed some of them were just kind of staring off at each other because she noticed it first. She goes, "What's going on?" And they, instead of, looking at the candy and everything, some of them were just holding it, but they were clenching it. And they were, kind of staring off, or staring straight at us. And some of them were starting to drop the objects that were in their hands. Okay. And then they started looking at each other with these weird smiles. And then they were looking back at us. And they started walking up to the counter where we were. And like I said, it just wasn't natural. Because they, obviously they hadn't decided what they were going to buy or anything, and then they started in with literally with street theater. I'm not making this up. She was so scared she almost ran out of the store because a couple of them, they came in and they started talking about certain things. Yeah, some people should just keep their mouth shut, I think one of them said, and a couple of other of these individuals, they looked over and they looked at us. Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, can't keep their big mouth shut about certain things, can they? And they were talking normal. Their voices sounded different. It was just the creepiest thing I'd ever seen. And eventually they kind of came out of it because it was time for them to leave. And I don't even think all of them, some of them just looked confused, like what the hell just happened? And they weren't able to. One guy was frustrated because he wasn't able to get what he wanted. I don't know, man. It just, to me, it was an eye opener because I had assumed up to that point that all the people that I was dealing with were involved in some type of occult secret society thing or something, right? I was raised that way. It's kind of a delusion that was kind of given to me at a young age. People in my family used to talk about the Rosicrucians a lot, which is basically connected to the Freemasons. All of them are connected. But the point is it's something that came through to me, and I don't know. For the way I look at it now, if you're going to use the spiritual explanation, and I think a lot of people are dealing with that. I think it's more common. What's the Bible say? Well, it says that, the whole world is under the influence, basically, of the kingdom of darkness, of the kingdom of Satan. And the problem that I have, and this happens even in, religious circles, is that people tend to focus on the sensationalistic, right? You got to be, messing around with a Ouija board or something. You've got to be in some type of secret drug culture or involved in some, activity that's deviant. That's where the demons are, or down in Africa. But, when you're dealing with someone who has an issue, maybe a stronghold in their life or whatever, it can't be spiritual. It's just, the demons aren't, they're down at the Satanist club, or they're hanging around at the bars or something. But I think, I think it's a lot more prolific than that. And a lot of people talk about guardian angels, right? And I wonder if everybody has a guardian angel. Or about a demon, I think it's the same. And, when you look around the world and you see the activities that are going on and you see the things that are happening and the obvious manifestations of evil that's biblical in the world, that's undeniable, what else are you going to, conclude, right? I think Second Corinthians 4:4 says the world is being blinded of the glory of the gospel. And I'm not picking on anybody, because I think when I say this, and I'm going to say something, first I'm going to say this, that people that have obvious problems are kind of blessed, in my opinion. even if it seems really bad or nasty, because at least they know that they need help. At least they have the opportunity to recognize that and say, hey, I got a problem here. This isn't natural. Okay, and that way, I think they've got kind of a leg up. And Jesus said that to the Pharisees, tax collectors and prostitutes are going to enter into the kingdom before you. And why? Because at least they know they need help, right? The Pharisees thought they were all that in a bag of chips. They didn't know a lot of people in the world are like that. And they're judging people that have afflictions, whatever it is, whether it's, some type of sexual problem or an addiction problem or whatever, something that is obviously evil, and they think that they're good because they're doing a lateral comparison. They're saying, I'm not a prostitute. I'm not a drunk. I'm not a drug user. Those are the people that are going to hell, I don't have nothing to worry about. I go to church every Sunday, and I don't play with Ouija boards. I'm not out, committing adultery. I'm fine. But that's a delusion. Okay, and the Bible says that everybody has to have a relationship with Jesus Christ, that they have to be in Christ, right? And so anyway, what I'm getting at is, when you look around, especially the sexual confusion that we have in the world right now, it's an obvious, undeniable manifestation. What does the Bible say about that? That it's a sign. Why? Why would homosexuality and all this stuff, this transgender thing, this LGBTQ, all this stuff, why is it an obvious manifestation? Because it can't happen naturally. That's the whole point. And it's a sign of demonic activity. And it's also a sign that God is judging the world, because they're here for a reason, right? They're not just running around looking for a good Monopoly game, A lot of people don't understand that. And like I said before, I'm not picking on those people at all. The reason I'm using them as an example is because there's really no other way to explain why it's happening. There isn't. People don't just decide to do that. If you're a straight person and you're listening to this, how much money would you have to be paid to go up and kiss somebody or make out with someone of the same gender and like it? There is no amount of money, right? I don't care how drunk you get. It's not going to happen because it's unnatural. And as we're focusing on this example, I'm not talking about, the woman that has the butch haircut and is, taking hormones or something and starting to look like a man. I'm not talking about the guy or the man that is taking hormones and, growing, the things and, looking like the opposite sex. I'm talking about, the original type of attraction that, when you get two burly guys together and they're, acting like they're in love, or you get, two women who are obviously, not, masculine in any way at all, and they don't have an issue with it. Okay? Because, there's really no other way to look at it. It's completely unnatural, and the only way that it can happen is spiritual. Okay, getting back to the point, when I used that freaky example, it opened up my eyes, because I knew at that point these people were not involved in some type of secret society. They weren't getting together at some nondescript building in a secret location on the weekends for some type of clandestine meeting or something, and I've had that experience before too. When I went to military school, there was a girl that was like that, who became possessed, okay? And she started doing that to people and freaked everybody out. They actually called the local pastor, and he had to perform an exorcism right there on the campus. It was the freakiest thing that I've ever heard of. I wasn't actually there because my family had come down and I was out to dinner with them. But when I got back, I was immediately confronted by the staff, and they said that I had to, be separated from everyone in the whole school because my name, of course, got brought up in the exorcism. My gosh. I was wondering if it was fake. I thought maybe they were just messing with me. They had some pretty aggressive therapy techniques at that facility. But yeah, I guess that's what happened. And there was another guy that she brought up too. And there were some pretty wild things floating around in the air after that. And they actually put me in a room by myself because of the things that were said. And they asked me if I wanted to know. And of course, I was like, these guys are trying to mess with my brain. I don't know. I don't want to know. Don't ever tell me. And people were, getting excited about that. They really wanted to tell me. And I'm like, no, I don't want to hear it. I'm not going to hear it. So anyway, I had to be on restriction until the next day, and then the director came in, and he gave me a chance to talk about it, and he told me what happened and how my name was brought up in this damn exorcism, and so it was really weird. And there were some other things that happened, and I've run into the spiritual thing quite a few times actually. A lot of people talk about running into the dark side before they really, are awakened to the reality of the spiritual realm. But those are the things that you deal with. Now, getting into, the street theater aspect of it, to the directed conversations. Okay, now we've looked at the possible ways that individuals that do this to people, how they get their information, how knowledge, or partial knowledge, I guess, in the realm of the spiritual, is coming in to this scenario. Because when people get attacked with street theater, when they get attacked with directed conversations, it always involves personal information. Okay, and it just depends on the level of aggressive behavior that accompanies it, because sometimes it's aggressive to where people will literally walk up to you and say something to you while they're staring you in the face. They will make it obvious, and there's no question about it. But I think the less aggressive, more passive version of this is far more popular, because when it comes down to it, the person that is getting attacked is eventually moving towards gaslighting. Okay, they want people to believe that they're crazy, and at the very least, they want everyone around the individual to believe they're nuts. Right, and that happens over and over again. When targeted individuals or people who are attacked in this way try to get help, or they explain it to somebody or whatever, people look at them like they're nuts. Right. And, as far as this stuff just being obfuscated and being activated, in all these different locations by all these different groups of people and all these various forms and methods, I think the spiritual application fits, I think, the best. I think there's a lot of stuff that happens. I think there are people who are dealing with the government. I think that there are people who are literally, being hunted down by groups of people who have pooled their resources together to play God. I think that there are individuals who have been targeted, literally by cults and secret societies. But the thing to remember is, even if you have, if there's a spiritual element to this thing, like I'm telling you, well, you're dealing with all of it. Even people who are government experimental lab rats. Believe it or not, I think they're dealing with everything. I think some of the stuff that comes at them is directed probably from some type of government program, but that doesn't mean that everything that they're dealing with is. That's the thing that cracks me up, because if somebody is listening to these videos, they're laughing. Oh, he thinks demons are doing all this stuff, and they might know a little bit. And they might be responsible for, whatever they know about. But there are other things that I deal with as a targeted individual they don't know anything about. Right? there are things that people, like I said, that might be in some type of government program we're dealing with, um, that the people that are handling them or experimenting on, they might not know anything about it. They might be completely oblivious to that stuff. And when someone is just sitting there, and I heard this story from another guy that he used to go and he would use the transit commute to go to work. Some people use the subway, and I think this guy was using some type of bus or something. And people were doing that. They were using these directed conversations, information that pertain to the individual's personal life that people shouldn't be aware of, or situations that they're involved in. And the individuals who are attacking them are going to kind of meld it into a conversation that's sometimes just loud enough for the victim to hear, or it's something that they can't get away from. This individual got to the point where he was wearing headphones, right? That way, if you don't hear it, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's a pretty simple solution, right? But according to this gentleman's testimony, they were following him around and raising their voice, I mean, there goes the gaslighting. And I talk about that. If you are getting attacked, whether it's a directed conversation or unorthodox behavior or some other type of passive methodology or whatever, you can't let them know that you're noticing it, because you want them to be obvious. You want them to have to come out of the closet with it and be obvious. If they want your attention, you got to make them work for a lot of different reasons. First, it frustrates them, and that's fun. Second, you're not gonna be as susceptible to accusations. People aren't going to be able to accuse you of reading into something, and you're not going to believe it eventually, right? You're not going to be gaslighted, right? You want these people to be as obvious as possible. You want them to have to work, okay? And and sometimes they'll switch it up to where they're not even trying to hide it, okay? They're not using passive or covert techniques. They're just coming out of the closet. And I think when targeted individuals are dealing with that, they're usually experiencing a lot of deprivation. They're being hindered in a lot of ways, to where I think they're just supposed to feel like they've been left out, like God has forgotten them, or things aren't fair, or they're in a way where they've almost got to envy the people that they know are wrong, but still in the life that they're living, they don't have any social activity. They don't sometimes they don't have the employment that they would want. They're moving around from job to job. There's a lot of stress. They're getting attacked. There's just a lot of reasons for them to loathe their own existence and all the things that they're being subjected to. And I think it's a way to push people into a place of bitterness, where they're going to even get angry with God or misperceive things. And so you can have all kinds of different scenarios that you're dealing with. The solution is just not to pay attention and try to tune this stuff out, but it's more complex than that. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that people, especially new targeted individuals, are led to believe that they're left out, right? These other people are running around. They don't have any troubles, they seem to be getting away with murder, and there's the targeted individual. They're experiencing all kinds of deprivation. They're being attacked. They're having a hard time financially and all these other things. And it's just the natural reaction, okay? And it's a problem, because at the foundation of how you process this information, you have to remember that these people are dead wrong. And they're not going to get away with this stuff indefinitely. Looks like it. And people have that problem all the time. It's been classic throughout history. People process information the way that the stuff is served up, and it's served up in a way that is to delude and blind the world. It looks like, the bad guy wins. It looks like people are getting away with murder. It looks like when you're, trying to do the right thing, it just doesn't work out. It doesn't pay off, right? But your existence is not summed up in this life. Okay, that's the whole reason of faith. When you're dealing with someone who, sells out for this world, you're dealing with someone who doesn't believe, which is what faith is, that there's a world after this. Now, there's other individuals, who get tricked in other ways, right? Where, in the case of the targeted individual, they might get to the point where they just don't think God likes them. After all, look at all the stuff they're dealing with. And that's when you have to really look at the Bible and look at the information that's there and see that, if you're listening to maybe, a sermon that talks about people living in a certain level of blessing or whatever, it's just not biblical. The people in the Bible, they didn't have money. They had a lot of trouble. Okay. I'm not talking about the Old Testament. I'm talking about the New Testament. Anybody who tries to push a prosperity doctrine or, tries to convince people, or they're trying to itch people's ears or gather a bunch of congregants to come to their church and be attractive, they're always going to use Old Testament references, because that was a completely different scenario than what we have in the New Testament. Okay, and Jesus said that when they hated me, they're going to hate you, right? That's just the way it works. The only thing that you are promised in this life anyway is trouble and persecution. That's it. And if you're part of the world, right, then you're gonna prosper, but you're going to hell. Okay, if you're not in Christ, if you're not going to take part in that persecution, if you're not going to be a disciple of Jesus, if you're not going to be somebody who stands in that place, you're probably going to do fairly well, right? Until you end up in hell, right? Or there's going to be somebody else out there that says, well, I don't believe in God and I'm a targeted individual. Maybe God's trying to get your attention. Maybe he's trying to wake you up, right? Now you can assume a lot of things, but the point is you have to see that these people are wrong, and eventually things are going to go very badly for them. And if you forget that, while you're dealing with all this, while you're dealing with a multitude of scenarios and individuals who just seem to be getting away with murder, it's going to be a problem in how you process that situation. Now, you do have to ignore it. I got to the point where I don't even listen to what people are saying unless they are directly talking to me. And it was difficult. Okay, at first I had trouble with that. I was, totally reading into things. I was always listening. I was always looking. I wonder are those people talking about me? And you're your own worst enemy. And that can also happen to where people who've been attacked in this way can start reading into things. That's one of the side effects of getting attacked this way. It's not just to gaslight the person, with that scenario and that's it. It's gonna have a reciprocity to where it's gonna go out into all the areas that person who's been attacked is living in, and then they're gonna find themselves reading into things that's gonna fit in to the gaslighting process, right? You're gonna start looking for it, and you're gonna start, giving into keywords or whatever, however it's served up, and at that point you are literally out there and you're, imagining things, but it's a process. It takes time. Okay. And people that are in vulnerable positions are especially targeted. Okay. I'll just give you guys some entertaining examples, or at least one. As I was in the hospital, and like I've mentioned several times, the targeted individual is going to be hit with different themes, And one of the things that I get hit with, people are always telling me that I've got to shut up, right? I've always had that in the street theater, and I've even had people come up and just tell me, why don't you just, and the people don't even know me. If you would just, quit talking about Jesus, or, you would just shut up and play dumb, this stuff would go away. I've had people come up and literally tell me that. I didn't know who they were. right? I had a psychologist tell me that one time. You just can't keep your big mouth shut. You shouldn't be talking about the devil at all, he said. You should just play stupid. Look at yourself. And it's, but anyway, so I'm in the hospital, and I often refer to the time that I was detoxifying from benzos. They hit me really hard. I mean, I got all kinds of activity when I was there, but I often hear targeted individuals talk about that conversation that's going on. And these two nurses came outside. They were standing outside the room, and they just sat out there forever, and they were doing that. Yeah. Well, he's got it really bad. Well, that's what you get when you just can't keep your big mouth shut. Yeah, I don't know if he's ever going to learn. How long has it been since he slept? Oh, I don't know. We'd have to look at the chart. But the doctor requested that he could go ahead and stay out in the day room. It was almost like they were provoking me to where I was going to finally come out there and say something, but they were pretending like it had nothing to do with me, right? And then finally they just came and stood right in front of the door and did all this. Yeah, well, I just like to relax. Oh, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go home tonight, and I'm gonna watch that favorite show that I watch on TV. Oh, I love that show. Oh, yeah, I like that show. I'm just going to go home, kick my feet up too, watch some TV. I'm not going to think about hell or anything like that, or all that kooky religious stuff. Yeah, oh, it drives people crazy. Yeah, that's why people go nuts. They just should shut up. And this went on for like 15 minutes, And I've dealt with this kind of thing before, and it got obvious, it's a reality. And, what are you going to say? That's why it's important to know that these people are so wrong. Because, if you don't know that and you're experiencing a lot of deprivation, if you're experiencing a lot of attacks, your life is really hellish, then that stuff, well, it almost seems true. But you have to remember that when this whole thing is over, the people that are saying stuff like that are going to change their mind. And there isn't going to be any relaxation for them. There's not going to be any rest at all, in fact. The Bible is very clear about that. So, the solution is to ignore it. The solution is to just process this as a bunch of garbage. You don't want to pay attention to it. Don't worry how these individuals are getting this information, whether you're dealing with the higher forms of harassment, and it might even seem like it's psychic or something. You just need to remember that you need to keep doing the right thing. You need to keep putting one foot in front of the other. That you need to treat other people the way that you want to be treated, the exact opposite of what these individuals are doing. And you need to be confident in that, and you need to know that one day this stuff is going to be over, and these people are going to be dealt with. Well, I'm going to leave you with an entertaining soundbite of that little example that I gave you. Have a good night, guys.
All medical staff, please report to the conference room on the lower level.
Yeah, sometimes you should just keep your mouth shut. It's better than going crazy. Well, some people don't learn. God's not helping him.
All medical staff, please report
I
to
can't
the
watch it.
conference room on the lower
How
level.
long has it been since he slept, anyway?
Well,
If he would just shut up.
I would rather be a heathen than to end up like that.